Now here we go. So here we have our character broadsheets. We make references to characters past and have invited characters from previous campaigns into the current runs, but with no context, the legends that many of these characters became would be lost to time. I wanted to take some time to talk to each player about a character that they played to keep the legends alive and possibly hold their memories hostage so that way I can leverage them against the fresh faces of our adventures. Although in this particular one, this character is back and is alive and well, mostly. Tonight, we're going to talk about Legion, Nigel. At one point, I think his name was Eros, but that was somebody, part of his backstory. So we've already gone over. Yeah, the man of many names and many faces. Actually, that's pretty accurate as well. But so we already talked about like when we started, things that you like. So we'll just jump right into the actual character himself. So Nigel is the first character you ever played?
So Nigel, yes.
So that would be.
He was my. Out of. Yeah, he was pretty much the first fleshed out person I ever made.
So this is like out of the Edenic 2.0 campaign that kind of started our D&D group. I made Balthazar, Josh made Therai, Amanda made Aliaga, and you made Nigel. What was Nigel's class when you made him?
So Nigel's only his most recent name that he goes by.
Sorry, I meant Legion. I'm sorry, yeah.
So if you actually look back, he was never named. His entire when I created this character, like I've explained for my soul character, these are all my characters. You can pretty much is a timeline of books I'm interested in at that time. So when I made Legion, I was reading a lot of anti-hero novels. Books about the main characters not really giving a frick or a fuck about right or wrong. They just have a goal, and no matter what, they're going to achieve their goal. Pretty much those goals being, I want to be strong enough to have control over my destiny. Is the main theme.
Fuck you money. Yeah.
Yeah, is the main theme of those novels. Is I want to be strong enough so that no other strong person can tell me what to do. So, and a lot of those novels, more brutal than more mainstream, hero doing heroic thing novels. So,
Right.
Legion started off as just an idea. In his backstory itself, he's not known as Legion. He's just known as a man who woke up. A man who had a life, a man who had possibly a family, who had his own backstory, probably had a job, probably had a home. And he never progressed enough in his own story that his real name was even found out. Now, I was
gonna say that was actually one of the things that kind of frustrated me about 2.0's campaign. What we did play was very Balthazar centric, and I didn't exactly want that for Balthazar specifically. And then when we were going to go on to other people's like arcs, if you will,
and it did.
And then it just ended immediately, and I was like, in hindsight, I feel like one of us could have picked it up, and then we could have done the rotation thing of like, okay, we'll focus on Therai this time, and then maybe Kyle will be the DM, or we'll focus on Legion this time, and then maybe, I'll be the DM, or something to that effect. Because we definitely should have played these characters out. We just were like, well, I don't know what to do now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but, it's kind of like now we are. Like, it's not really their original goals, but...
Right.
We are revisiting them.
Yeah, very much so, actually. But all that to say, so Legion is the man with no name who wakes up In what particular area?
So with him, that was my first character, emo murder hobo character. Now, being a new D&D person, everyone always has their murder hobo because you just like the idea of killing weak people.
Naturally.
I did want him to have a story though, because I at the time I didn't know what the fuck a murder hobo was. Never heard that term before. I just wanted a character that had an interesting hook that could be explored upon later, because all I knew was D&D was that it's a fantasy novel, a fantasy novel that plays out in real time. So Legion, as we'll address him as, he started out just waking up in a scorched home on fire across from a dead woman and a spell incantation written on the floor surrounding him, and a demon, a fiend known as Belith, something like that.
Yeah, it was Belith.
That pretty much just kind of laughed at him, and then from there it kind of cuts to him. It cuts to his thought process. So it cuts to an unspecified time later, where he's talking about how he's been going by the name Edward for too long, that they're onto him, and he needs to keep moving. Kind of leading, to the fact that he's not really Edward, that he's done something bad that he needs to run from. And then he runs across a hermit, and this was, to me, picking out his background, a hermit background. Comes across the hermit, who says his name was Arrow, and that he obviously he kills him straight out, and it then goes into how he's pretty much going by the name Arrow now. Talks about how Legion doesn't know his past. He got the name Legion from the fiend himself. He doesn't know if he knows that's not his name, but he has nothing to go by, because all the fiend does is heckle him or laugh at him and tell him to do bad things. This is giving Legion a personality and identity disorder, because I wanted to give him that emo cringe.
Naturally, yeah. He's the edge boy.
Yeah, edgelord. He's an edgelord, exactly. He's a psychotic edgelord, where he constantly feels like he has to change identities.
This is very bone collector-y.
Yeah. He does bad things, but he thinks he does them for a purpose. So, he wants answers, but he only get answers by doing this thing's bidding. And his whole story based down to, he wanted to find out what happened to him, who was the dead woman, what's his real name. He wanted those three questions was his story. Now, I knew when I made him what those answers would be, except his name. I still played with his name. I wanted his name to be something generic, like Jacob Hutch,
right.
Something just villager. Something that even once he found out that he wouldn't go by it.
Yeah, naturally.
Because it'd be one of those things, like he'd find out, like, your name's Jacob, but he'd be like, I'm not Jacob anymore. Jacob died.
Right.
And
was Belith the imp?
Yes, Belith was the imp.
Okay,
that was the form he chose.
Whole thing makes so much more sense in the context that Belith is the imp.
Yeah, because he was
Right. I don't think we ever actually saw or heard the interaction between you and the imp. It was mostly internal, and then you and the imp would tactically coordinate because Pact of the Chain and whatnot.
Yeah.
Dude, that changes the whole character, as instead of the imp being the thing that you summon, that now this imp familiar is actually the thing in control. That is wild. Boy. Okay. So holy shit. So Legion is just gonna that's his given name at this point.
Yeah, that's why I made when he at the end of your campaign, when he was under the control of Athazar and he died, his soul went to Beleth, and that's why he's afraid of dying again, is because he's going to hell, and he's going to the demons because they own his soul.
Right.
And Beleth is I kind of this isn't what I made originally, but later on I made it so that Beleth actually works under
Zariel.
Yeah, the girl, the fallen angel.
Yeah, Zariel for sure.
Yeah, so it's Beleth works under Zariel, and so now he's under, you know, one of the most kind of evil, fucking pain-inflicting people.
Yeah, very, very much so.
And so he's terrified of dying, but that's his newest relation.
Yeah, so that's V2, if we will. So on as far as V1 goes, because we can go into when you adapt him as Nigel in this current campaign in just a bit, but when you make Legion V1 for the campaign, first
Eros.
character fleshed out, Eros, he is a Pact of the Fiend warlock, right?
Yes.
With the Pact of the Chain boon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Now, remind me again. You played him as a very kind of broody anti-hero, right? If I'm not like give me the rundown as to like what do you remember, or how do you remember playing that character? Who were they as a character?
So,
and then, yeah, what kind of quirks do you remember him having?
So he was a lot different than how he's played now. Now he's more mentally broken, as you can kind of see with Nigel. Yeah. He's that's been from when he was broken in hell and tortured. Yeah. So his mind's kind of more fractured. Considering he was already fucked up. But before, so the Legion before was just basically, he was evil. He pretended to be good in the fact that he didn't want to lose the party. But any chance, and at first he did bad at it, because at first he even tried to hide the fact that he was a warlock. He actually tried to be pretty much a hunter type of subclass. He only used his crossbow a lot. He tried to hide the fact that he knew magic. And I think he got in a tiff with Aliaga at one point, that he was hiding things.
I can see that.
And he finally, showed, okay, I do magic. I'm a warlock. So that came out. I don't think he was ever generally trusted as much as the rest of the group was, but he definitely did run back. So he was a little shit. By any time people weren't looking, he was doing as many fucked up things as he could.
Right. The tavern scene with the fist fighting, yeah.
The tavern scene. I even distinctly remember at one point when they left the village, he doubled back and killed everyone.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Yeah, he doubled back and just killed all the people he saw and set it on fire.
That was when we were getting onto the fucking airship, wasn't it?
It was sometime before that. Yeah, it was before that.
Right. Holy shit.
So he ended up anything he could do behind their backs to be evil, he did. And then the only time he was really caught, was the bar.
Yeah,
Which I think outside the bar, someone caught him. Well, I tried to kill someone, and they dodged. So it became oh, you're still alive.
Right. No witnesses. Yeah, no face, no case. That's right. And so that was his thing was just, oh man, okay. I'm sorry. That's a mind-blowing revelation that is 6 years in the making of the fact that it was the imp that, as far as any of us could tell, we rarely ever saw, if ever at all, right? And you did very well to cast spells through the imp so as to mask the fact that you were, because Pact of the Chain. And so from a meta standpoint of us at the table being like, what the fuck is Kyle doing? Right? And then, but in the context of what we don't get to see is this thing is influencing this character, which makes him a tragic anti-hero.
He was supposed to be tragic. So, because originally he was a normal dude, you know, he had a wife, he loved his wife. He actually, I played with the fact of having a kid, but I ended up not.
Right.
You know, he was just a normal, he was villager A.
Huh.
But his wife wanted more. And what happened was, his wife made a deal with the devil. The devil will give her power if she sacrifices the only thing she loves. And so his wife did a sacrifice of him. So she gave up his soul to a demon. What turned out was she never loved him. She was the psycho.
Right.
Was like, this isn't a fair trade. You don't love him. I'm taking what you do love. What she loved herself. So it took her life and took her soul. And that's when he woke up, you know, to the demon who just took her soul, and everything's on fire, and the demon saw him and tricked him that he made the deal.
Holy shit.
Yeah. He was an innocent guy. They got tricked by a demon who, while he was still in the material plane, got his ticket to stay.
Right.
Because the guy wanted answers. And the only way he was going to get answers by making a deal.
Make a pact. Yeah. Holy shit. See, okay. just to side rail a little bit here. These are the sorts of things that, like, because we can never hear the inner monologue happening, that, like, having the interactions in a public space, not so much like an inner monologue, but like not so much having an inner monologue making it outer, but like actually having an actionable moment where you can like get to witness this scene play out like in a public space, that changes this whole character from first session of being like the heel of our group, right? Like I can distinctly remember Legion being like, well, he's a piece of shit, but overwhelming power, right? Like, so we kind of need him when the DM says that a dragon's scales on their fists are basically like gauntlets, so you have to deal like a d6 plus whatever, like, you know what I mean? It was supposed to be a fist fight, and then he was like, yeah, but you're a dragonborn, so you're gonna kill this guy no matter what you do. So it was like, suit people, right?
Yep.
Like yeah, that changes so much more of the character. That's absolutely wild to me. I'm sorry. Again, this is like a 6-year revelation that I'm having. Thanks. So I get to feel existential now.
His end was supposed to be him realizing all of that, and then that would really depend on where he was at his point in life or where the campaign took us. Because at that point, he was either going to, you know, accept it or pretty much exit stage left.
Right. and I think that's kind of where our headcanon ended up taking, or at least our collective headcanon for, because I remember workshopping with you, and even separately with Josh about the travels of our characters henceforth, to where we see Balthazar be BBEG to a certain extent of my campaign 1, and like how those pieces sort of fit together to where you guys are in the current iteration of the campaign, of like, instead of him figuring it out, kind of relishing in the evil, in the bad deeds, I believe is what we were talking about, and then living out the rest of his life being a bad guy with Balthazar being a bad guy, and then eventually like
punished.
Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, here comes the retribution for everything that you've done wrong. And then now also you, anyways, so you made this character full-blown warlock. Never got a chance to multi-class him at V1, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah,
Because I think we only got up to like level 4 at that time.
Something like that. I'm not sure.
And so there wasn't really a whole lot, if I remember correctly. There wasn't really a whole lot, or maybe there was, and I just didn't see it because, you know, was there, for the choices that you made mechanically, was there a lot of planning, or was there a lot of like, ooh, that looks nice, ooh, that looks nice? Because he was fiend packed, and I think you had given him a lot of like kind of fucked up spells, right? Like Witch Bolt, I think, was one that he had, which is in itself pretty fucked up, and a lot of like fire. I think at one point, I don't think he ever used it, but he had like Ray of Sickness.
He was definitely offensive.
Yeah.
Being, you know, my first character and first caster,
right.
You just see all the toys and you want them all.
That's the fucking truth. Yeah, and so as far as that line of questions goes, it was very much infancy player. I want to be able to burn people. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to be a powerhouse, which he totally ended up being. And you've actually already kind of answered where you expected him to go, which was to eventually find out the truth behind what it was, and either in that moment you would either come to terms with, or
and then I
remember
no one even realized his name wasn't Eros.
No, nobody ever asked. We just, because there was never, I can remember wondering,
saying Legion at one point, or somebody else saying Legion, but it was like meta, like they didn't know.
Yeah.
Or I said Legion, like, who's Legion? Who's Legion? Well, I mean, I mean Eros.
yeah. I remember that.
Everyone knew it wasn't Eros, even though I wanted to hide that fact.
Well, sure.
But
I mean, at that point, characters or player surprises were pretty big. But like, I can remember.
He had everything.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's the truth. So when you made him, you figured out where you wanted him to go. You envisioned where the story would end. And then we get into like an open ending, essentially.
Essentially, because we just stopped playing.
Yeah, we were like, okay, well,
upon yourself in a campaign to kind of bring them all back.
Right, and so we kind of get a glimpse of them for a cheap nostalgia hit, and then in this campaign we've had a chance. So let's talk about Nigel, colloquially known as Nozzle Gel. So Legion V2. Who is this guy? You've kind of talked about what happened to him that kind of broke him and made him as quirky as he is in what we see. But who is he now?
So he's what I thought would be the natural manifestation of what his experiences should have been. So he started off as a normal dude, tricked into becoming a cringe lord with a mysterious past, into being once again being taken control over somebody else. So a demon took control, and then his supposed team member took control, and then he lost his life, and something that he had no control over. In which case, he went to the demon who naturally already made a deal with, in which was tortured and subjected to whatever devil thing they wanted to.
Whatever they do down there, yeah.
In which he was brought back again for I forgot. Didn't someone fuck up or something?
Basically, what had happened is because of your soul had basically become conscripted into service by Balthazar, right? As effectively as a shade and completely under control. Although you kind of knew what was going on, but you didn't have any control over it. And then when you were defeated in battle by the breakers of the Legion, it's kind of apt. But when you were defeated in battle, your soul didn't really have a place to go immediately at that point in time. And so that is kind of where, okay, so in transmission to go back to where you were supposed to go, this thing happened that basically broke magic. It was effectively a spell plague. And so your soul was kind of free floating out there, and then it sort of coalesced back into a physical form, which is you. But also, you went through all of the torturous demon stuff, and now you're like here again.
Yeah, so in being brought back from that, his immediate new goal is never die, never go back. That is my new goal, is never going back there again, no matter what. No matter what it costs anyone else or me, I can never die. So his journey from that is pretty much power. I need power. Or before, he needed answers. Now, I don't care. I don't care what the answers are. I just need to never die. His mental state at that point of time would have just been focused on that. Like nothing. He didn't. Pretty much like how you're in war and you don't really. Your PST doesn't show. It's when you come back.
Right.
So he has all these issues, but he's not facing them right now. So then he would, then he went out and found the new guy, what should be your new big bads.
Yep. He found Corey.
He runs with
Gerald them. And all that.
He thinks okay. And at this point, he trusts no one. Naturally. He's a two-faced liar, which will use anyone, any way he thinks would benefit himself. He doesn't.
After being burnt that many times, you develop a complex.
He literally can't. I don't think he can even connect with people anymore. He can't connect. So
that actually brings us to a good point. V2 Legion, which has changed his name, assumed Nigel. A different identity to Nigel. He is a learned wizard who specializes in necromancy. So he does the controlling of the undead.
Yeah, so when he was brought back, he's broken off with his pact. So he no longer has a patron. So he doesn't have power. He needs power.
Right.
In which case, who are the strongest? Wizards. In his mind. And they learn their power. So yeah, he naturally wants that power, which I think what's her name teaches him?
Kaylin. Yeah, so Kaylin basically takes him under her wing, teaches him magic, teaches him how to use magic not in the same way that a regular warlock would, and sort of creates this person. And so if you had to call any aspect of his personality a quirk, like something that's just kind of like odd, I think that it's the fact that he sees undead as his friends. They're the only thing up until the very end that he calls his friends.
Yeah, so undead.
Would you say that is like the quirk of his, or does he have a specific quirk that you wanted to play into at that time?
So he trusts things that he controls. So his undead, he makes them act like they're people because he's insane. You know,
Yeah.
it makes him feel like they're real when he subconsciously makes them act real. But
Right.
they're skeletons, they're summons, he controls their every movement, even though it doesn't look like it.
Right.
When this one does a funny, cute thing like tripping or carrying its fellow skeleton on its shoulders and then falls, that's him subconsciously doing
Right. And when they all shrug and look at each other like, who?
that. Yeah,
Who? We don't know who did it. Yeah.
yeah, that's just him being insane.
So, when you made V2 Nigel fresh off of Deus, and so naturally the inclination of, okay, we know who the bad guys are, Black Veil, right? Make a character that's been wronged by them to make a reason to fight them, understandably. Was he just a wizard? Because for one, that is like the antithesis of their whole thing. Because the not to get too long winded, but the two factions that are in the current campaign that are like the majority factions of the first part of the campaign that you guys were on, was Arcane Eye, wizards, liches, so on and so forth, versus Black Veil, warlocks, sorcerers, shit like that, right? And so you made a wizard character that kind of didn't fit into either.
Oh
Was
yeah,
that on purpose? Like,
no,
or
it
was it
wasn't
just
on
because you
purpose
were
in
like, I
the
want to?
fact. It wasn't on purpose in the fact that I made him a wizard only. Of that, he wouldn't have fit in with either of them just naturally because I think we've gone over. He would if he didn't get betrayed, he would have betrayed. Like
Right.
his entirety thing was as soon as he got the power and knew he was stronger because again he's not taking chances. But if he got into a situation where he could overcome the others, he would have killed them all, turned them into skeletons or undead, and made them act the same.
Naturally. Oh,
So
so. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Keep
well,
going. Keep going.
that's pretty much the end of the thought. Like his vision now, like what would be his end goal if he could achieve it, is to kill everyone. Everyone dies,
You
and he
know,
goes over the bones.
that is very much like the Lord of the Undead Orcus. You should just in your spare time just watch a video, like a RuneSmith video or whatever, about Orcus. That's literally his whole deal. Is like, the world is too noisy and chaotic. If everybody's undead, then I can control everybody, and then everything is fine.
Pretty much.
But so I don't remember off the top of my head. Did you make Nigel, so Legion V2? Did you make him as a multi-class, or was he just a pure wizard?
Pure wizard, pure necromancer.
Nice. Okay. So when you made Nigel, and we were talking about like, okay, well, this is who you want to play. Let's workshop a little bit, give him his own, like, his own motivations and so on and so forth. Where did you see him going when you made him, or were you thinking ahead to like end game, like this is his end game, or was it just like, I want to play this character and then here's a motivation of his?
It started off the fact that I just wanted to make a necromancer because
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be a necromancer, like ever since I played a necromancer in Diablo 2.
Right.
But the thing that off put me is a necromancer can't even summon a skeleton until like level like 5. So I never made
Right.
one because we'd start off at level 1 or 2. Back then we usually started off on very low level.
Right.
And I didn't know how to role play a necromancer that couldn't summon a skeleton because I'd have to wait until we got to those level 5, level 6s. I could even freaking summon one.
Yeah.
So it wasn't worth it. But when I got a chance to make a high level character out the gate, perfect. He could be a necromancer, he could have summons, and I wouldn't have to do the first couple awkward levels where he's a necromancer that can't summon any necros.
So you speaking of like raising people and bringing people back from bringing people into undeath, right? You had one of, for me personally, you had one of the two most impactful roleplay moments, and it was right at the end of the first part of this campaign, which was the big explosion that killed Kexi, Kaoken, and Maya was already dead, but where you had him run up and in the middle of the storm, this battle, all of this shit happening all at the same time, you had him screaming at the Black Veil of like, you took more people from me, you bastards. Like, I'm not going to lose friends again, so on and so forth. Now that's where we pretty much like shuttered that. And so we know that Nigel is alive because you and John were like, we got to go back to the watchtower, so on and so forth. We know that Nigel is still alive. There's
Well,
still the chances for, huh?
I also told you what his plans were, if you remember that.
Which was to bring him back.
You remember I said he wouldn't go back to his tower because they know about his tower. I said that he would where he'd want to hide would be in the underground.
Oh, underground, right. Yeah. Where that used to be one of the bases of the Black Veil,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, back to where the map was. That's probably where he would try to go to hide.
So you make him out to be this character. He's still alive. So there is still like a relatively decent chance, assuming that we don't just say fuck this campaign before we ever actually get Kaoken back, to go back to these characters and so on and so forth, possibly. But in your head, like, Nigel is now a big player in the city of Karan. He is this sort of like,
people left standing.
he's sort of like this yes man character, like yes man from New Vegas, right? He's sort of like this like third option of factions.
I didn't think of it that way. Yeah.
Like that was one of the first things that so to you, has his story kind of bookended, like as this forever scheming third party like powerhouse that's within the world, or if not, how do you envision, how does he end, right? In your mind, does he achieve world dominance via undeath, or is it like he's always going to be that character who's trying and never actually succeeding?
So how I originally was planning on ending him was him becoming a lich, in which case I would naturally shelf him to not being a playable character anymore. So I would have dropped the reins as soon as he became a lich, because that's what I wanted for him. Is I wanted him to gain that power of an immortality, quote unquote immortality.
Right.
In which case he would fuck off to whatever dark region of the world and live in seclusion for the rest of his life. In his he probably wouldn't try to take over the world at that point. He would just want to be left alone, to live solitary in life until
just take out adventurers to try to get
like,
into his tower and take his gold.
Yeah, like he would stop being aggressive at that point once he got his goal, because at that point he's like, okay, I'm immortal. If I attack people that want to attack me, that's no. I would rather people forget about me, and I live over here. Ha ha ha! I won. I forever get to be alone in my dead tower, surrounded by dead people, with nothing ever changing. That would be his sad end goal, because there's no happy ending for Nigel. There never will be. His only happy ending would be just to be alone forever, alive. I'm essentially alive.
Not to stroke you up, but I'm constantly finding myself, in hindsight, amazed at the characters that you've created because they are very wildly different. Like, you know, you and Josh specifically uh, have made some very, very wildly different characters from each other, as opposed to kind of typecasting yourself into the same sorts of roles. It is very interesting to have these conversations about these characters because I'm always like, fuck, that is so distinct from Deus. That is so distinct from Saul. That is super distinct from like, Fafnir, for instance. That is very, very insightful.
And Fate.
So, well, Fate's still open. Who knows? Maybe he'll want to become a lich or something. I don't know. We'll see. But so as far as Nigel now, so Nigel,
Yeah, right.
um,
Yeah.
he's moving in the shadows. He
Keeper of
is
Ken's body, as far as we know.
I mean, yeah, as far as we know, he's got Kaioken's body. Well, more or less, he is trying to build up his power within the city currently, right? What
Yeah.
would you say would be an adventure that we might see in a one shot or we might not see? Something that like in your head is like, okay, here's the story that I'm going to suss out. Here's something that he's going to want to do.
Well, I mean, we would naturally, unless something off screen happens, have to run across Nigel, just to get Kaioken's body for whatever ritual we have to
True.
do to bring him back. Unless at some point somebody else gets it that we don't know, or whatever. So
Right,
we
right,
would
right.
naturally run into him that way. Otherwise, a one shot could be, um, you know, undead showing up in Karan. Just
Also, I wouldn't rule out anything that happened between Nigel 1 and Nigel 2. If there's anything in there that you like envision happening as well.
yeah, and we can talk about that, because I'd be open for a lot of interpretations of what could be run off of him. The only things I could think of is kind of three different things. One, it'd be in the future, and undead keep showing up in Koran. Where are they coming from? And the sewers literally being flooded with undead that he created to battle or defend himself, or to attack, uh, the Black Veil,
Black Veil.
and possibly, the Black Veil are dead or gone or whatever. But that he didn't know, so he's creating this army for this army, that stop existing. In which case, you'd have to clear the sewers, or
Right.
he could hire out people to pretty much, there's a quest. This cloaked individual needs this, and this, aka ingredients for a phylactery, and he needs you to get them, or
Actually,
to
really good.
quote unquote later, the evil citadel in the east, has been around for
Yeah.
5,000 years, invade and destroy the evil lich lord there.
The evil lich lord, Nigel
Nigel, yeah.
Thornberry. No, I'm kidding. So, okay, that brings me to like an interesting idea. Obviously, nothing set in concrete, but um, Nigel ends achieving level 17, although you didn't get to play him regrettably at level 17,
18.
right? Which 18, sorry, which as we all know is the 17 is the bare minimum that you need to be able to become a lich. But would you ever in the future, not just as like a level 20 like one shot or anything like that, but possibly like a reduced level Nigel, like kicking him back down for whatever reason? There's a million different ways to skin a cat to get somebody to come back down, as the rest of the party found out with a shadow dragon. Would you ever play a slightly reduced from where he is now Nigel, even if its continuity has continued, but possibly something has happened
I
to
actually
continue?
made his spells to be for that. So Nigel, if because with the levels I got, he was going on another course of immortality. So he got Soul Jar and Clone, and basically he was going to start Horcruxing himself.
Yep.
So he has the ability right now to separate his soul and to make clones of himself to put those souls in. So he would
I
definitely clone himself and send his clones out.
I cannot describe to you how completely elated I am the fact that you took the time to research those things,
I
because
read every single
I've been
necromancy spell.
talking about those set of clone, simulacrum, contingency, like I've been talking about those spells for fucking years. I'm like, if you just get to that level where you can do those things, you can literally live forever, albeit when I die, a new one goes you know what I mean? Shit like that. Like that's basically lichdom if you can cast those spells and whatnot and do all that stuff. So I'm super happy that you actually like took the time to read those and figure those out, because that is one of the best workarounds towards being able to play a character that you could possibly have. So you're saying there's a chance.
Oh yeah, he would
That's
definitely, and that would also count for why he's weaker, because he's just a clone.
all I'm thinking of is baby Voldemort, the little like,
Back of a head.
yeah. That is awesome. Well, I mean, for what it's worth, it's probably pretty likely that we'll see him again, assuming that, well, like I said, we don't just go, yeah, all right, Anthony's fucking campaign is too retarded, but and then like end it. But there's probably a pretty good chance that we'll see most of, if not all of the characters that we ended with at the first part of the campaign. So is there anything else you want to get off your chest as far as Nigel goes? Legion, V1, V2, anything in between before we call it quits here?
It's easier to write off things like with character flawed individuals, especially within more insane ones. I know it was kind of out of see, it's kind of on character and off character how he reacted to Kaioken. Because, truthfully speaking, he should want Kaioken just to become a skeleton. But in the way it happened was too reminiscent of his past and the things he's lost or wanted, that he in my mind, he saw Kaioken as himself, in which case like he was losing, like it brought him back, right? In his fractured mind, that this was his party, which he really doesn't even view them as his party. Like these are his
Right.
tools. Like he explained to I forgot her name.
Oh, Kexi.
No.
Kalen.
Kalen. They were just his tools
Yeah.
that he's using right now. But yeah, when Kaioken went down and pretty much his party was dying, it brought him back to when pretty much he died. And he was like, no. So, because I've been kind of like not knowing if people thought where I was going with that, just because of how he kind of acted before. But that was my intention. Was he's insane, and he just kind of has these moments where he does things that don't make sense, and it's because he's insane. Because otherwise, like I tried to play him as off like he pretty much has like two different personalities, acting like an old guy and then acting normal,
Right.
but still looking young. And it's just meant
Right.
to show that even just on his outside, that's how scarred he is on the inside.
That he okay. That again, that makes so much sense. Instead of it just being like, he's weird because he's got Benjamin Button's disease or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, like 'cause he
whatever
has this.
the fact that he's so stressed, so scarred, so broken that like that stress will literally age you. I mean, in real life, if you look at a president before they become president and
Yeah,
after, they
yeah. No,
visibly age like 15 years in age. So that makes a lot more sense. Huh.
yeah. But Nigel has been definitely. I would recommend it kind of that way. It's a lot easier having character development when you don't know their start and you only know their beginning. Because like with all my other characters, I know where I want them to go. Where Nigel, I only created his literal backstory.
Right.
So it's been easier with the character. It's easier with the characters like that to change them, which I've kind of found out. Not that I don't like what I did with my other characters, but they were more like they're harder because I've had to do things as other characters to pretty much not break the group. Like
Right.
I had to make concessions with Deus that I don't think Deus would have done, and I've had to make concessions with Soul that I don't think Soul would have done in
Right.
order
Right.
not
Right.
to up the group. Which with a character like Legion or Eros or Nigel, um, I just kind of like on the fly, them acting that way created another
A
reason for
facet.
themselves. Yeah, so Legion, being the evil fucker he was, I didn't have to break his character to not be evil. It just turned into Nigel developing a trait where he does fucked up shit behind their backs. It didn't change into, well, this isn't what Nigel would have done, but I have to, I guess, in order for my group not to abandon me. It became, okay, well, now Nigel or Legion naturally learned to hide his evilness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
wasn't me breaking character, it was me developing the character.
That is probably a good tool that we should all fucking learn.
Yeah,
I can
so
get down on that.
yeah, because that's only like other times where I don't like role play is when you have to break character just to keep the
Right.
party going. But I learned with Nigel, who was the only person I ever didn't make the end. I just made the beginning. Kind of never had to do.
Well,
So I thought that was interesting that I didn't know until my sixth character.
that is incredibly interesting, and I think that's something that I think that is a very not unique skill, but I think that is a very like how do I put this? That is a skill that I think is equally as important as rigidly adhering to a character's RP, because we've all made characters that are like, all right, man, that just won't stand. You know what I mean? Like with this character, could
Extract.
not feasibly do this, like or allow this to happen, so on and so forth. And
Yeah,
I think that from a role play perspective, I think that is a definite skill that should be kind of like that should be tried to be emulated, because that is, I don't know, we should malleability in a especially in a campaign like this one where like I don't know, Josh is always constantly churning through them. In a campaign where we're always churning through like characters or stuff like that. Like I think that malleability is probably like, yeah. But well shit. That
I think
that
I think the only other personalities there's two other personalities I've been meaning to do. One I kind of got to do with Nigel, in which case I've always wanted to create a really old person. Um,
dude.
I didn't really get to do it with Nigel because he was kind of split between acting old and insane to acting like a gentleman. Uh, but I do plan on making a character at one point that is just old, and I also want to create a character who's a drunkard. So
So that reminds me on a side tangent.